on to the hearings panel report to the council. And thank you both very much for both the presentation but the preparation that's gone into this. We know how hard people have worked, and all of the council units that have fed into the work that has been done. Thank you very much. The hearings panel report to the council on the Te Waiora or Tāne draft integrated water strategy. The chair of the hearings panel was Councillor Jani Hansen, and I would invite you to introduce the report. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Can I just first off by thanking and acknowledging my fellow panel members, Councillor Sarah Templeton and Councillor Phil Clearwater, and also just to acknowledge our staff. I'm just looking if they're not quite here, so I don't know if we want to invite them or if they're on the way, or whether people can we can just move on with it. But really, this is a pretty fundamental change to how we've been doing things, and I think that's quite significant. The key thing is that although we didn't get a lot of submissions, we actually got a lot of quality submissions. So people are really concerned about our water, as you can expect. They're really excited about us taking a much more holistic approach to how water is managed, so that we can get the best outcomes. And so really, I just want to go through the key points around the hearings panel's deliberation and where we've got to. The first thing is that we really have changed the start of the vision, and it's really just a very basic statement, but we've changed it to water is a valued taonga in all that we do, because we felt that simplicity of expression around how much we treasure our water is really fundamental, and I think that's a really significant point. There's a number of changes that we've made that address very specific submissions, but Goal 4 really, I think, really goes to the crux of why we need an integrated strategy, and that is looking at managing our assets across all of council activities, such as roading, water supply, wastewater, stormwater operations, and parks. We're really talking about having a lot more synergy so that we can get the best outcomes for water. There's a number of other things, I think, just to highlight several of those. One, the hearings panel was really keen to ensure that we actually develop the implementation plans, because that's really the key of what we're going to do. But it's really important we have tools, measures, indicators that show progress towards what we're trying to achieve. That was really clear from the hearing panel. And related to that, we also discussed and supported the need to include a way in which we can have community forums. We can have ways in which people can come together across the city from a variety of different fields and stakeholders and public to talk about the water issues. We saw that as being really, really critical. And I'd like to acknowledge Carolyn Potter as a member who made a submission in that regard, to say we needed to make sure that people were really aware of water and greater than what we had in the strategy. Just two other quick things. One is a lot of discussion about incentivising rainwater reuse and use of grey water. So again, these are things that are considered in the implementation plan. And of course, just making sure that the strategy aligns with the new changes to the old Local Government Act 2002, which is around those 4 well-beings, which you all will be aware of. So in conclusion, I do want to promote the integrated water strategy for adoption. What's really clear through the city is that there's a number of amazing people, community groups, individuals across organisations who do value our water and are working really hard to achieve that. And I think this is part of council lifting its game in that regard. So in conclusion, the key features: water is a precious taonga and deserves to be protected as such. The council's committed to removing the temporary chlorination as soon as possible, and we see that the future water supply network is able to be administered without the need for residual disinfection. That council is deeply concerned about the potential impact of nitrate levels that are being set across the region, as they are not strict enough to provide confidence that future water supply will be protected, and we will do whatever we need to make sure that they are. And finally, a more integrated approach needed to improve water quality, address invasive weeds and reduce the stormwater, wastewater overflows. So I really welcome this coming to council today. I think all those that have been involved, I'll now hand over for others who may wish to speak.
Well, first of all, Yanni, could you just, I know that there's been a little bit of work done on some additional text to be covered off in the resolution. Would you like to just touch on those two items there, or?
Yeah, there's been a bit of
because I'm going to invite Diane Schellander to come to the table, because obviously Diane's just done a tremendous amount of work in the behind the scenes, and so I would like her to be here for this moment,
great.
but also to answer any questions that colleagues might have. But would you like to just talk to those two?
Well, I think the key thing is really just in the executive summary, we've got a number of goals, and we're really just strengthening some of those goals around the points that I was just raising before. And that is making sure that we have integrated approach, and also the fact that we do see ātitanga as being really important, the way in which we look after the water as a city. And so what we're really saying is we do believe that local people should be in control of water, given how precious it is. So that's A. In terms of B, that's just reinforcing the concern about that both the nitrates issue, to say that we will do as much as we can in terms of advocacy and action to protect our water supply from nitrates, and also that, again, just reaffirming our absolute commitment that we see that the water network does not need to have residual disinfection, e.g. chlorine, because we believe that we can provide a safe drinking water supply network for all without that. So that's really the substance of the changes. They're more probably not technical in nature, but they're more just emphasising and strengthening some of the things that are already in the strategy further on in the document, but putting them right at the front.
Lovely, thank you. So has any, well, you're going to move it, and Phil wants to second it. So are there any questions for Diane? Well, that's a very good sign. It's been moved and seconded, so I'll open it up for debate then. Phil.
Dan, I'm very happy to support this, and including the additional work that has been done recently, and we've got up there as additional recommendations really. And I certainly join Yanni in thanking Diane for huge work. Also the people who made submissions on this really important part of our work and future work. And the goals, are really clear, and not only in the document, but in terms of what we're signing off today. And there's a couple in particular I just want to stress, and Yanni has referred to issues around the quality of water in the source and also the reticulation. And that, of course, is just so important, that we make sure that the source and the reticulation system, that they're protected and enhanced, so in fact they are safe for health and they're sustainable. A key part of that, I think, that we need to keep an eye on is how we make sure we keep on cleaning up our urban waterways, that we don't just say, look, it is all in the wider catchments. And we've done full credit to our land drainage working group and the work that's been done there already, and the establishment of the retention basins, which will catch a lot of that silt, which actually contains a lot of the contaminants, we know that. And also the different stormwater filters that have been put in place, and the different wetlands, which of course will absorb a lot of that. So really supporting those often community-led initiatives too around that is really important, an important part of this integrated strategy. And the other part too, though, is, I guess, making sure that we continue the last goal being we manage this in a sustainable and integrated way, and as a principle of kaitiaki. So making sure, in fact, we look hard at the regional land and water plan and the Canterbury water management strategy, so we make sure we do get better outcomes than we currently have, because we know that the measurements we are seeing are all cumulative, and we have to address those. both in the quantity, particularly in the quantity, and we know about the quality as well. So I'm sure that councillors will support this today. There's been a lot of work gone into it.
Pauline and then Andrew.
Yeah, I agree with everything Phil said. This is an amazing piece of work, and my only question for Diane might have been how long has you been working on it, but I think it's many months. And I do want to really recognise Diane for the incredible work she does in this organisation. She's one of those quiet achievers in the background, but your knowledge and your discipline with many submissions that you work on with us and for us are incredible. Also our link with the Christchurch West Melton, Zone Committee is incredible, so you bring that knowledge across both organisations as well. And, the work that's happening in both this organisation and with the Zone Committee, I mean, they've got the sedimentation toolbox now, which helps particularly with construction on the Port Hills of any housing, that there are strict codes of compliance to stop any sediment coming down into the waterways, particularly the Heathcote, but those rules apply to all construction sites now, which is a really big move in my view. But also what this integrated strategy tells us is that this organisation has the skills and the talent and the knowledge and the ability to continue to deliver our three waters in-house. We have got incredible talent here. We're recognised right across New Zealand and internationally on the work that we've done with the land drainage recovery program and the stormwater projects that we do. People come here to find out how we deliver these things. Our investigative teams do incredible work, and I'm very proud of this organisation and the talent that I can see in here. So thank you for all the work on this, Diane, and for the working group as well, the hearings panel. Thank you.
Sorry, there was somebody else. Andrew, and then Anne.
Thank you. Water's certainly a hot topic at the moment, and I think it's very timely that we have completed the work that this document represents, which is an integrated, joined up and strategic approach to a number of aspects of water. I certainly support the additional wording which is contained within this resolution. The expectation is that chlorine will be a short-term issue, but the knowledge is that nitrate incursion, unless we do something about it, will be a long-term issue, and they're both things that it's clear that this council, and I would expect future council, is taking very, very seriously. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank and congratulate Diane and the team on a piece of work well done, particularly engagement with stakeholders. I thought was excellent. I attended a stakeholder session some time ago where members of the Zone Committee were present, and that certainly represented a really good and well-informed conversation, and I can see aspects of those sort of conversations reflected in this final document. So thank you very much indeed for a piece of work well done. My hope is that this document influences in reality the way that council works and the way that council thinks. There will be a very good opportunity coming up in the next few months when we consider wastewater and the opportunity for beneficial reuse of wastewater. So what we're saying is that water is precious and water is valuable, rather than seeing wastewater as a burden that needs to be got rid of. When we look at some options for the Akaroa wastewater scheme in the new term of council, we will be able to see opportunities for the beneficial reuse of wastewater in one of the parts of the city where drinking water is constrained because of the water supply there, and it's my hope that this work will influence the way that we think about real life problems like the ones that we will be talking about in Akaroa.
Anne.
Thank you again for the work that you've done, and it's just reminding us that we are all one, and that we all need water, and that it is our taonga, and this is all about us taking up our role as stewards of this taonga. And that lovely Māori word, kai takianga, which I can never say, which is about...
Kaitiaki tanga.
Yes, it's actually more than looking after something. It's actually leaving it in a better state than what we found it. And I think that this document is all about that. So thank you for the work that you've done, and I particularly like that comment that we are adamant about the chlorination situation, and the fact that we have got to get that statement to our residents that we're making a firm stand on. That's really good. Thank you.
Vicky?
Yeah, I like the fact that these things have been summarised, and I think it was important that we did that, because I don't think that people necessarily read an entire strategy document, and I can understand that why they don't do that. I think there are probably 3-4 things coming at the new council that will be substantial, or maybe this council on Monday, in terms of chlorination and the current, what the Ministry of Health is doing. That will be a big one. I think it's really important that our views are known. The nitrates will come at the new council, and hopefully ECAN will be sufficiently changed in outlook and resolution and determination to do something about nitrates that this council won't need to get involved, but whatever happens, it has to happen incredibly quickly, because what we're doing is taking an incredibly rare, pure water source, and what ECAN's plan change does is actively destroy it. So you haven't got time to waste on that one, and you need to act. You have the consideration that was going to come to this meeting but is going to November, of the water conservation order for those aquifers coming in November. I think probably you need to do it, even though it's a long process, and I think everything that we can do, and I think that's what the statement says about protecting our source water, is really, really important. The other issue that's going to come at the new council is the government's planned changes in relation to the structure of the 3 waters, where we know that some of the smaller councils around the South Island in particular cannot afford to do the wastewater, stormwater and drinking water that they need to, and the planned government solution seems to be that that would be a really good idea to hook them in with large rate-paying bases such as the Christchurch City Council, so that we could pay for all the wastewater that's required in the West Coast, for example, and a lot of other smaller authorities. It is a really, really dumb idea on so many levels, because the idea of taking stormwater, wastewater and drinking water out of the control of the local council means that nobody can actually look in the eye of the people who are making the decisions about their water and tell them what they think. And it is so fundamental to the purpose of local government that to set up a separate authority and take it out of the council would just be horrible. So for goodness sake, don't let that happen either. I would also like to say thank you to Di. I think when we first came on council, poor Di had to write the very fast submissions on the stopping the oil drilling off the Canterbury coast. And I don't think she's stopped since. So thanks, Di.
Thank you. Any others? Glenn Livingston.
Yeah, thank you. Just reflecting on water, for some time, a recent New Zealand Prime Minister said no one owns water. Now, all right, that's a statement which seems to have not really been challenged much, but I think the key thing coming through here is simply what's been referred to kaitiakitanga. I mean, when you look at all these pieces here over chlorine, nitrate incursion, the regulatory environment, this is what it's about. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the right question to ask? Who owns the water? It's about instead asking, we all have a responsibility over the water, and thrilled to see this big overarching piece of work coming through. It's very significant, and it will be, as Vicky's outlined, for the next council.
Well, before I hand over to you, Yanni, I just want to say that actually really to follow on from what Councillor Livingston just said, the fact that the government hasn't addressed the issue of the ownership of the water is actually one of the challenges that we face as a city, because we have such a precious aquifer beneath our city, which, for a whole lot of reasons, which, oh, yeah, no, I might as well just say, because I really agree that we are adamant that we can achieve the objective of delivering safe water while ensuring that our community health remains our top priority. We're adamant that we can achieve that objective without residual disinfection. There is no need to add residual disinfection, and there has been no need to do so. But we've been required to do so as a reaction to what happened in Havelock North when over 5,000 people got very sick, and a small number of people actually, their deaths were associated with what happened there as well. Could what happened at Havelock North happen in Christchurch? Well, when you looked at why it happened in Havelock North, no, wouldn't have happened here. We don't have wellheads with sort of stock in the neighbouring field doing what stock we don't have stock wandering around doing what stock do into waterways, and we check all of our wellheads and switch them off in storm events that we know are coming. So we had a water safety plan. They didn't. I mean, I can go through the list of things that went wrong in Havelock North and wouldn't have gone wrong here. So we know we can do this. We're in a risk-averse environment. We can't get engineers. We couldn't get engineers to sign off on wellheads. We've got engineers signing off on our wellheads now, and that gives me great confidence, and that's why I can say we're adamant that we can achieve the objective. But if the government would address the issue of the ownership of the water, then we could address issues like water bottling. We could address those big issues that actually perplex our city. They can't for a minute understand why we're chlorinating our water supply when it seems that we're allowing access to our pristine aquifer by those who will put it into plastic and ship it overseas. It's, you know, and so as soon as the government is able to deal with that challenge, I think that the country as a whole will find a better way forward. But I also wanted to thank Diane for her incredible work. I don't know how long you've worked for the council for, but you know, just the extraordinary amount of patient and detailed analysis and work that you have done for us on submission after submission after submission, and all of the work that you've helped contribute to helping us understand issues like nitrate incursion, which I'm glad to see called out here as well, and that sort of the preciousness of our water and how we need to protect it. So thank you. You've done a great service for our city. We don't often get the chance to call that out in a public environment, but I call it out for you. You've done an extraordinary job, and I know you've got a team of people around you, probably not big enough, but you know, for the amount of work that you've done for us, but really for the city as a whole, thank you very much. Yanni, I'll let you close off the debate.
Thank you. Some of the more interesting submissions, and I think this is really a watershed moment for us as a city and a region, talked around the use of water, exploiting water for economic development. And just to borrow the words of someone who is quite well known at the moment, Greta Thunberg, you know, she said at the UN just recently, "My message is that we'll be watching you." And then she goes on to say, "Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We're in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?" And when you reflect on that and reflect on the history of Canterbury in the last at least 2 decades that I'm aware of, with the idea of increased irrigation for economic development, the massive increase in the number of cows that we've seen across the Canterbury Plains, and the benefits to whom and the cost to future generations with the potential for the nitrates, it is really, really concerning. And I think this strategy is part of us saying collectively, we are not just going to promote the economic well-being of the region and allow our water to be exploited to do so. So there's a number of things in here which I think will give us greater awareness, but also a greater call to action to really challenge the idea that that people can just exploit water for economic gain without any environmental risk, of course, that then falls to future generations and possibly quite likely to the current generation. There is an irony, of course, that today we've just seen the huge headline around the losses that Fonterra has piled up around dairying. And I think, you know, there's certainly this strategy is a much better approach of balancing the cultural, the economic, the environmental, and the social well-being of our community. But I do think the overriding principle is that as local people, we deserve to be in control of our water. That is such a treasure, and it is priceless in terms of looking after it. And we are absolutely committed to doing so. So I just, in conclusion, hope that we adopt this unanimously. It's got a lot of really good things in it. It is a statement about our position collectively as a city, about how we're going to improve, but also to safeguard our water. And I really just commend you all to endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you. I will put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.